So a very warm welcome to all of you. My name is Abhishiekh Saxena and today we are going to start a journey which we call as public administration advance. So a lot of you might be wondering, what do we mean by public administration advance? Right? Some of you are here in the classroom and some of you are watching me virtually in the comforts of their homes or wherever you are. So the idea here is, and let me set the expectations at the outset. When we look at advance, what is it? I mean, that is advance because the syllabus is something which is already given to you, right? The syllabus is very much there as part of the initial description which the UPSC gives you. Many of you are now so-called veterans of this examination, right? Is it going to be your first attempt? Means written? No, not yet. Okay. So at least some of you, or rather many of you are looking for something different when it comes to advance. Let me tell you that while we study as part of foundation, as part of our regular revision, certain standard material and we develop the understanding of the subject, the advance aspect is largely nothing new. Yes, there are going to be certain new things that I am going to teach you, but those new things are in relation with whatever you have already studied. So it is just the final sort of a polishing that is required. So the purpose of this advance is that polishing. Also, the idea is that in the span of 2023 classes that we have, we are going to provide a holistic plus effective revision. When I say holistic, you all understand, right? That means covering the entire syllabus, touching upon the syllabus. When I say effective, I mean certain high yield areas. The high yield areas would entail areas that have been repeatedly, consistently touched by the UPSC. Along with it, we are going to do some answer writing practice and we are going to look at PYQs. Okay. So the mode is that since all of you are not ab initio or rookie students, I'm not going to get into much of a dictation mode. The idea is going to be fairly interaction, right? Those of us who are online can actually use the message box to interact and later in the mentorship. For the answer writing part, I'll give the directions. Just wait on that. Okay. So that is going to be the modus operandi. Also, you have a session plan with you, right? The session plan is tentative. And by that, I do not mean an escapist tentative here. What I mean is that whatever is there in the session plan will be touched upon, yes, but there will be more. As in, you will find that dedicated sessions related to second ARC have deliberately been not mentioned in the session plan, but we will be looking at second ARC very exhaustively, because I know that a lot of you have just covered the summary and have not gone through the second ARC. When we talk about advance, the idea is to build perspective, interlinkages, right? For example, if you look at the topics of the day are meaning, scope, significance, right? And our very own Wilson. But have you ever thought about critique of Wilson? Have you ever thought about what were the Wilsonian ideas related to public opinion? Bureaucracy, yes, you know that he advocated the politico-administration dichotomy. But what's beyond that? The idea is to get in-depth perspective in terms of writing the answers and ultimately to fetch the marks. We are here to crack this examination. None of you are here to do PhDs in public administration. So it's as simple as that. Okay. So this is something that is going to be the focus, right? Apart from that, I'll try and touch upon topics like positivism, post-positivism, integrative views. Now you see, often you would have seen that in the examination, you've seen some PYQs, ma'am, right? So they ask that positivist underpinning is problematic, right? Or from the epistemological point of view, right? So you see, the knowledge portion is, the knowledge pool is same. It is how in how many ways we can use that knowledge pool. The idea is going to be focused on that. All right. So we'll be talking about certain terminologies like this, which you might have heard or which you might not have heard, but garnishing your answer with that wherever required, not everywhere, will elevate your answer to a far more level of depth when it comes to the conceptual aspects of it. Okay, so that is largely going to be the idea of these sessions going forward. Okay, at the very start, let me tell you, I'll be giving certain questions towards the end of the session. Those of you who are attending the sessions in classroom can very well write it to me, and hand it over after the class. Those of you who are online and watching me online need not worry. The process is, should I erase this? The process is simply that you have to write the answers on a piece of paper and use a scanner using your mobile phone, make a PDF and send it. Send it how? Your name, the paper should have your name. It should be written PubAd Advance Session 1. For example, today is Session 1, so Session 1. Okay, questions, marks and your answer. Remember, this sheet should have this. Also write GS score at the top of it. And then you have to email it to abhishekh@basics.in. Do note down this email ID, right? And the CC should be done at, so this is going to be the 2, the CC is going to be test series @iascore.in. Okay, the subject PubAd Advance session number, for example this is 1, right, and your name. This should be the subject. Note down the SOP. Okay, because any violation of this SOP will make it cumbersome for me to find your copy and trace your copy. So there is no point in wasting time on that, because right now many of you are going to write the mains examination, and the time is one of the most crucial aspects that we have to keep in mind. So follow the SOP and you will get your replies. I will not be evaluating copies in a pen paper mode wherein correcting. I'll be giving my comments as a reply to your email. So fairly simple, quick process. Okay, because we do not want to keep any delays. That is there. Try and submit the answers by the end of the day. So suppose it's today's class, spend some time, 2 questions, hardly half an hour work, right? And you can basically submit the answers. Ma'am, you would have missed the initial part. Just go back, watch it. Don't worry, nothing has been taught as of now. Okay, so this is going to be the idea. So please follow the SOP. That's it. Okay, and I'll try and do that within 24 hours. Okay, that's something that I'll strive for. Now, before getting into the so-called advanced thing, let me ask you a question. How much is the exam for? The weightage of public administration? No, I'm saying paper 1 and paper 2, how many marks total? Madam, how many marks are dedicated to any optional, including PubAd? You are saying 250. That is paper 1 and paper 2. Right? All of you know this? What if I say it's 400? You are writing mains this year? What about you? Okay. You see, that the question paper, and this is the part of that advanced perspective that I want you to build, because this examination is not about knowledge. If the knowledge was the only thing that was needed by UPSC, they could have hired professors and PhDs directly from the universities. Right? When we say that this is 400, if you look at the pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? Till now this is the pattern, so we'll assume that this is going to be the pattern going forward, unless the Unpredictable Service Commission comes up with a surprise. Okay. Question number 1 and 5 are compulsory. Every question is 50 marks each. So 8 5s are 40, 400 marks. Right? That means each paper is of 400 marks, but you have to attempt 250 marks out of it. Right? Now you must be thinking that this chap is stupid. Why is he telling us all this? This is something which is written in the instructions. But I'll try and defend the stupid tag for a while. The idea is that while question number 1 and 5 are compulsory, out of the 2 sections, we have to attempt 3 other questions, at least 1 from each section. That means that the choices that you make out of 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8 matter. And if you will analyze the previous year's questions, you will find that the topics that are there are generally asked as part of one set. So while you prepare and do your own SWOT analysis, strengths, opportunities, weaknesses and threat. Okay. Although order changed, sorry. Right. So the point is this, that you can make your own threat analysis. Also, we will see that there is a trend that is coming up. Yes, we are not in the business of predicting the examination, we are in the business of preparing for it. But these trends can help us in going forward, if not completely, but partially. Also, the marks distribution as per various units. You see that unit 1, paper 1, unit 2, unit 3, unit 4 carry a substantial, weightage. Yes, that is correct. But then there are hidden units. Hidden units in the sense which are not given so much importance. For example, the unit of financial administration. It also carries 20-30 marks. So while you are deciding the mix, like I said, I don't mind if you do not know Taylor. What I mind is whether you score in the examination or not. If you can score it by financial administration, so be it. Right? That is what my business is going to be. So we are going to see the trends of paper 1 and 2 unit wise, and then we'll get on with the topics. This is important because along with the trends, I will be highlighting the high yield areas for you, because many of you who are writing mains will have to revise it as well. Okay, so that is something which is to be noted. Right. So we'll be seeing certain trends first, and then we'll start with the topics. So I'll be taking up paper 1 first. Okay. So when we look at paper 1, unit 1, that is the unit of introduction. And I am basically scanning the question from 2016 onwards. So 2016 to 2023. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. 8 years. If you will look at the total, it is about 140 by 8 years. That means 20 marks. Paper 1, unit 1, average. Please understand, PubAd is a dynamic subject. When I say 20 marks, that means that the fulcrum of the question, the weight of the question lies in unit 1. Not to suggest that you cannot use NPA, NPM, good governance elsewhere. Right. So please keep that thing in mind. And largely, if you will look at the high yield areas, it is either regarding meaning, evolution, okay, largely it is meaning, scope, significance, evolution, and the Wilsonian vision. Okay, so the questions actually repeat themselves, and I'll just tell you how they do it. And this is discarding the part of NPM, right, and all that. If you take it and include the paradigms as well, it will boil down to 50 marks. That is NPM, etc., etc. But largely, you will see here also, if I include this, then the NPM, New Public Service Approach, NPA, PCT, all those things come up. Largely it is the NPM and evolution, meaning, scope, significance, as well as the challenges of liberalization, privatization, globalization. Okay. So that is the larger remit of Unit 1 introduction. Next, let us take up the unit of administrative thought. If you look at the administrative thought, again it has a huge chunk of around 400, that is again 50 marks. Right, we'll get to the topics when we will discuss. Largely it is about theories, Bernard, human relations school, various schools, so evenly distributed. Not much is there in terms of the specifics, but yes, there are certain thinkers and concepts that we'll be taking up in the due course in the forthcoming sessions. Next, if you look at the unit of administrative behavior, the average is around 30 marks. Okay. Next is the organizations. Roughly it is 25 marks. I hope you understand that I am giving the approximate round figures as estimate. Okay. After organizations, which unit comes? Accountability and control. Again, 25 marks. Then comes administrative law. Okay, syllabus तो पता है ना सबको, everybody knows the syllabus. ऐसा कोई है जिसको syllabus नहीं पता? $20 marks. Now, before moving forward, you see, Unit 1, Unit 2 are roughly comprising the 40% of the weightage. But this 40% of the weightage is not concentrated. You will see that the questions wobble between 1, 2, 3, etc. So smartly, if let us say I am a law student, or I am good in administrative law, but I am not very good with thinkers, I can offset that, can't I? I mean, there are compulsory questions, 1, 5 that everybody has to do. But the choices that I make, because generally you will see that the questions are bunched. Accountability and control and administrative law you will find are bunched. One will be a 20 marker, other will be a 15. This is how the paper 1 is there. Right? In paper 2 you do not have a 15 marker. You either have a 20 marker or a 10 marker. Right? I hope this aspect is clear. Okay. So smartly, where your strengths and weaknesses are, you can at least better manage this. Okay. So that is something which I wanted to bring about. Next is the CPA, Comparative Public Administration. CPA is again 25 marks. Rixian point of view, current status of comparative public administration and certain abstract areas. Okay, let me give you an example of a PYQ. So this was asked in 2020. The question states, administrative ideas must be seen in the context of environment in which they develop. So the ecological approach, anybody who does not understand anything can point it out. I am assuming that you all have done your foundation and the basic studies. So when I say ecological approach, you know what I mean. Okay. Administrative ideas must be seen in the context of environment in which they develop. In light of the above statement, examine the influence of NPM and ICT. NPM, New Public Management. ICT, Information Communication Technology, on the comparative study of administration. On the comparative study of administration. So this is a kind of an abstract question which involves more than one topic. But the focus remains on the CPA. Now, in such questions, what you have to do is that the theoretical thread will be of CPA, but the contemporary thread will be of NPM and ICT. Because CPA, if you look at, yes, it is a paradigm that we talk about when we look at Golembowski, Nicholas Henry, etc. But we'll also have to examine that CPA has been there even before it was a paradigm, because Wilson talked about comparative studies. Right? So these kind of interlinkages need to be built. CPA, when the thesis started on CPA, they gave credit to Wilson because he laid the foundations. The systematic study in a comparative sense. So, the basic conceptual thread will be CPA. It will be decorated with NPM and ICT, thereby justifying the ecological approach. Obviously, it can include DPA. If you look at, good point. If you look at, okay, here, CPA, DA, right, and NPA. What is common in them? The point is that they were shaping the ecology and they were getting shaped by ecology, both. Also, interestingly, if you look at the timelines, both are happening between 1950s, all of them are happening between 1950s and 1970s. It is just the lens which is getting different. Right? क्या ये किसी को पता था पहले से? Did you know this thing before? I mean, you knew it, but you realized it. I mean, you might be Hanuman, but you know your powers. That kind of a thing. So we have to interlink the ideas, and that is central to it. Okay, so going forward with our description.
Regarding that particular question that you talked about NPM and the ICT with the CPA. So, but in that we can add that the studies which were conducted and how NPM is not ecological.
No, that is not your question. NPM is ecological. It is not to suggest there is nothing which is ill-ecological. Let me tell you that. Okay, why NPM came about? Why?
So because the welfare state was failing.
Exactly. So it was ecological.
Yes, sir. But what I want to convey is that NPM was blindly put into.
Yes, it was a blanket phenomena, but that blanket phenomena by design was a response to an ecological impulse.
Yes.
To that extent it is true. Also, when you are putting ICT, it is the demand of the technological changes that are happening. So the countries right now, and link it with current affairs, G20 happened, we talked about as a nation digital public infrastructure, thereby improving the administration, better public service delivery, right? Ease of services, enhancing access, availability, affordability, reliability, sustainability, all these abilities. So these jargons have to be dropped. I am not asking you to write answers while being a Shakespeare, they, thou, do. No. It should be simple, is-MR kind of an English. But where I am talking about accessibility, the word is accessibility, right? I mean, at least I cannot know a better synonym.
How can we go about that?
Right, that is what I was coming to. So, since you have drawn these linkages, so we'll have to talk about how the comparative studies has been the very much part of the identity of the public administration since its inception or distinction as a separate discipline. The evolution of the discipline has largely been ecological. And what we see today is a metamorphosis of the ecology that has transformed the discipline over the past century or so. In the modern context, information technology plays a critical role, both impacting the administration as it impacts the citizenry, as well as the comparative studies of public administration. Example, digital public infrastructure, service delivery, etc., that we talked about. NPM, while it came as a response to the limitations of the welfare state, this development, that is NPM, was not happening in isolation. It was happening along with or in tandem the technological expansion, that is the ICT. So while NPM talked about a broader agenda of privatization, rolling back of state, the agenda at its conceptual moorings was a blanket agenda, Western-led agenda. But information communication technology not only democratized this space, but also impacted the manifestation of NPM in various geographical contexts, depending upon their comparative levels of development, administrative proficiency, historical backgrounds, social structure, hitherto existent organizational and government structures. Then probably you can give an example of, let us say, Asian tigers, how Asian tigers were largely, Asian tigers, you know, right? South Korea, etc., etc. Whenever we talk about NPM, we talk about Asian tigers, right? How they took a lead, and they were the non-Western, people largely, right? And how they came up with their own variant of administration based on the NPM and ICT realities. Then India comes into the picture, it catches up. So this is how you will answer. Yes. They lagged behind. So while we are talking about who moved ahead, we will also talk about lag behind. African nations, Sub-Sahara, Latin America, basically global south that you are referring to. You can refer to that. And hence the administration there continues to remain corrupt, despotic in nature. Still increasing the need of NPM, but NPM will not come alone because this is an ecological reality. It will have to come up with transparency, accountability, etc. to succeed as a via media for administration. So these interlinkages matter. Okay. Should we move forward? So this was your talk refresher for CPA. Okay. After CPA comes which unit? Development dynamics or development administration. Now, if you look at this particular unit, roughly 30 marks. 30 marks. After DD, you have which unit? Personnel administration. Very good. Public policy is unit number? कोई बात नहीं, याद हो जाएगा. Now look at this personnel administration. Roughly 40 marks. Now you must be thinking, yeah, personnel administration 40 marks. I never thought it like that. But it is there. So while preparing, for example, in 2023 alone, it was 40 marks, exactly the average. I can read out the questions. Instead of conflicting, the employer-employee relationship should be of one mutual reliance. Explain, a 10 marker. In career advancement, civil servants are necessitated to political superiors, and hence the phenomena poses a challenge for the civil service's neutrality. 15 marks. Training is not a short affair. Rather, it's a step-by-step process of developing skills, habits, knowledge, and aptitude. You must be thinking that whether we are giving the ethics paper or PubAd paper. But this is the reality. 2023, 40 marks. So, if I'm not very good at remembering thinkers, yes, there will be questions in question number 1 and question number 5. But the rest, at least I can offset through personnel administration.
Can you please highlight the thinkers or topics, subtopics which are very important?
I will highlight as we'll cover. I have highlighted for unit 1 that we are going to take up today. In due course, I will cover that. Okay, so don't worry about that. The high yield topics, when we talked about unit 1, meaning, scope, nature, evolution, NPM, Wilsonian vision, impact of liberalization, privatization, globalization, I talked about it, right? Similarly, unit wise, we'll be keep on seeing stuff. Don't worry on that. Okay. So, after personnel administration comes public policy. We missed organizations, right? Or did we do organizations? We missed it. We did, okay. Right. We did, okay. Now, the unit of public policy. Interestingly, you will find that most of the questions are 10 or 15 markers. And the yield is about 25 marks again. And there can be abstract questions like globalization is impacting the context of national policy making. The national policy agenda is becoming international. So, I have slotted it in public policy. If on the flip side, you can slot it as part of the impact of globalization. But since it was not in generic public administration, it was specific public policy, that is why we took it. Okay? There is nothing absolutist about it that I have talked about, that it is belonging to public policy. I have a logic to back it up. If you have a better logic, give it to me. Okay, so that's the kind of the idea. Okay, after public policy, we have the unit of, which one is left? Techniques for administrative improvement. And here you will find generally 20 marks, 15 to 20 marks. Generally a 10 marker or a 15 marker is there. Very rarely a 20 marker has come. Okay. Less than 20 marks is the average. So 20 marks we'll put it for techniques of administrative improvement. Then what is left? Financial management. Rather administration. Financial management is paper 2. Okay. 40 marks. 40 marks. Okay, the difference between financial administration and financial management, right? This is the question. Do you know the difference between administration and management? You have your answer. So the point here is, look, while we are looking at financial administration, we are, and I'm telling this from a very practical sense, we are looking at the conceptual moorings. That what is a budget, what is an audit, different types of audit, what leads to what, and what are the benefits, challenges, advantages, etc. While we are looking at the financial management, we are not just looking at the theoretical part, we are looking at the implementation part, more. Also, when we look at the financial management, we are talking about paper 2. So there is a silent Indian here. Okay? So while we talk about financial management, for example, if I talk about budgeting is something that I talk about in this also. Right? Here, the secular concept of budgeting remains the same. So there, in financial administration, I am going to look at far more conceptual and theoretical ideas. What is a budget? Why it should be made? Why is it important for any organization, etc., etc. The types of budgeting that the national governments follow. Line item budget, this budget, that budget. The newer orientations emerging, gender budgeting, environmental budgeting, or green budgeting that we talk about. How about child budgeting? Can't there be an idea? There should be an idea. Tribal sub-plans, etc. Right. So that is coming up from when we talk about a tribal sub-plan is in India. It might not be in UK, for example. So that is my manifestation, my financial management. But the principles of the administration remains the same. For example, if I am talking about as part of Mission Karam Yogi, the transformation from rules to roles. This is the agenda, right? Am I saying that the bureaucracy should not have the rules? Am I demolishing the edifice of the rule-bound Weberian bureaucracy? No, I am not, right? But I am more specific in terms of roles, in terms of the outcome orientation. So that doesn't change the fundamentals of the bureaucracy and how the government has been arranged or functions or structured. Right. This is something which is changing the implementation idea. So that is precisely the difference that will come in financial management and financial administration.
So you mean to say that financial administration is about principles that we follow?
Ideally, it is about principles, but the questions are not like that. Questions will be hybrid. For example, if I tell you, emphasis, and this is 2021, a 20 marker. Emphasis on cost control and reducing public expenditure has diverted the focus of the government budgets from the basic objectives of reallocation of resources, bringing economic stability and promoting social equity. So this is what school? This is socialist school, socialist view of budgeting, which is talking about that the budget is an instrument of resource allocation or resource redistribution to bring about equity, etc., etc. Whereas if we look at it from the NPM lens, the picture completely turns. So you understand, here we are talking about the theory part. Got it? People who are watching us online, do they have any queries? Okay, there are so many messages. All right. I hope these things are clear. Right? All right. So financial administration part I talked about now, right? 40 marks. So this is the broader, agenda with regards to paper 1. Now, what I'll do is I'll start with some concepts that we have to take up, and if the time permits, we'll take up paper 2 today, or when the paper 2 portion will start, we'll take up paper 2 like this. Okay? Make sense, everybody? Make sense? Any doubts whatsoever? No. Okay. So, while we were discussing the Unit 1 and today's topic in your schedule is talking about meaning, scope, significance, and Wilson. Right? We'll be looking at positivism, impact of LPG, and slight orientation on evolution. Okay, so this is going to be my broad agenda, right? So whenever we look at the meaning of public administration, and if you will look at the previous year's questions from this, you will find that more often than not, a statement is given. For example, 2016, the question says, thank you. Public administration is the translation of politics into the reality that citizens see every day. Donald F. Kettle and James W. Fessler. Okay? Then cut to 2018. The scope of the discipline of public administration is determined by what an administrative system does. Does it mean that the scope of the discipline is boundaryless? Right. So does it mean that the scope of the discipline is boundaryless? So that means it is boundaryless. No. To an extent, that is what the perspective and the analysis, the question will actually talk about. Can it be boundaryless? No, it cannot be. It has to be. Then as a solution we say it is contextual or ecological. It is never boundaryless. If you want to find the boundaries of the administration, look at its ecology. So often statements like these, right? One more example, 2019, and remember the 2018 question. Public administration is constantly being reinvented because it is contextual. There we were arriving at ecological through a deduction. Here we are backtracing the ecology. Right? So in questions like these, you see, very important thing is how do you manage the question? I mean, the information part is there with you, right? The information part is very much there. But if I can draw a timeline, you know, paradigm 1, paradigm 2, paradigm 3, paradigm 4, paradigm 5, paradigm 6. Okay? And write briefly 3 words, name that paradigm, 3 words about the characteristics of that paradigm and ecology, which shaped this. For example, if I look at the initial era, the classical management theory and the scientific management theory, it was largely a positivist approach which was looking at it. Simply, I have to write a positive approach shaping the ecology. Right? Gaining complexity of organizations, things like that. So if I draw this number line and simply label it, immediately the examiner will see this and he or she will know that I know. So it's tricks like these that will help you fetch more marks. Easy, simple stuff, right? Nothing complicated. Also, if you want to use, this is general paradigm, right? If you want to use, let us say Nicholas Henry or Golembi whiskey, Then you can talk about the locus focus. Right, locus, focus, locus, focus, locus, focus, like this. Immediately, this small graphic at the center of your answer after the introduction will convey that you know the answer. Okay, so things like that are asked. Now, let us move substantively towards the meaning and all those things. So, when we look at the meaning of public administration, there are various views, and I want you to actually jot down those views about the meaning. So, Gladden says that administration is a long and slightly pompous word, but it has a humble meaning. For it means to take care for or to look after people, to manage affairs. So what kind of orientation is this? Okay, I'll repeat again. Ian Gladden administration is a long and slightly pompous word, but it has humble meaning. For it means to care for or to look after people, to manage affairs. This statement, discuss. A question can be to discuss. Right? So here if you look at, he is taking a sociological view. He is taking a view wherein he is looking for caring for people, society at large. So this way you have to identify the themes.
So
Publicness of administration. Okay, then Felix A. Negro. Administration is the organization and use of men and material to accomplish a purpose. Isn't this instrumental view? Right. So you should know, the moment you see this statement comes and it says Negro and Negro discuss or comment, you can say that okay, this is something which is instrumental. So it immediately adds a weight to your argument. Otherwise, you will be doing anek shabdon mein ek shabd, explaining, rehashing what the statement is. So you immediately provide an anchor to your argument. So that is what I am saying, that the idea of the advanced classes is not to teach you something drastically new. It is about giving you newer orientations and dimensions. Okay. Simon. Where do we study Simon generally? Decision making. Decision making. Right. But Simon defines administration, that administration can be defined as the activities of group cooperating to accomplish a common goal. Common goal. So what do you infer from this statement? What kind of a view is he taking?
Like he's talking about the decision making, that everyone is cooperating and
Behavioral or humanistic?
so behavioral.
Right.
He talks that administration is nothing but decision making.
Right. Hi, Ane. Ane, I hope you are getting the stuff. And Saurabh, you also? Yes, behavioral. Right. Everyone, correct. I hope you all are getting the stuff. If there are any queries, please write it down. Right? Write it down. Okay. Then Pfiffner or Pfiffner. Administration is the organization and direction of human and material resources to achieve desired goals. Now, which view is this? Hanji, which view? Talking mainly about communication. No, he says administration is the organization and direction of human and material resources to achieve desired ends. Human and material resources. Think about it. Come back to me with it. Okay. Similarly, you have Dwight Waldo. Waldo, we associate with NPA, right? Minnowbrook, 1. Okay. So, why you must be thinking that why am I repeating all these things which are so common knowledge amongst the students of public administration? Because it reinforces the learning. So, Waldo says that administration is a type of cooperative human effort that has a high degree of rationality. Okay. L.D. White. L.D. White says, the art of administration is the direction, coordination and control of many persons to achieve some purpose or objective. Okay. So with these views, if you think the meaning of administration, it can be derived from multiple aspects. It can be looked at from multiple angles. Yes, ma'am.
So Fitner and White Waldo and White, they are focusing on human aspect
As well. So
that it's not only that you can just have structure or principles and then you can say that this is administration. It will work only when humans
are. So you will not include it in behavioral view. You will actually align it more. I hope you understand that I am not labeling Pfiffner as a humanist. Please understand. But the view that is emerging, I am looking at that view. So humanist was what? Human relations theory was what? Was it dismissing the classical theory altogether? A question. Was human relations theory dismissive of the classical theory altogether? Yes or no? No. Because it kept the ideals of efficiency, merit, effectiveness there, but provided or added another layer of a human aspect into the organization. So it was an improvement over the CMT. But it was not a negation of CMT. Whereas when we come to NPA, NPA will be very highly critical of the CMT, etc. and all those things. Anti-hierarchical, and because it demolished the very basics of the administration as it was envisaged by the CMT and other, up till behaviorals we can say. It wanted to transform the administration, not just the bureaucracy. But the agenda was vague. And that is why the threat which the classicals were feeling, that oh my God, the classicals and the purists who were loyal to the then predating pre-NPA view of public administration were thinking that oh my God, NPA is such a threat to public administration. Whereas the cheerleaders of NPA were thinking, oh my God, it's going to be a revolution, the whole scene is going to get transformed, etc., etc. But neither happened.
Sir, when NP talked that it is anti-hierarchical or anti-technical, in anti-technical they rejected the structure of principles, and in anti-hierarchical they just wanted the hierarchy also
No, it was not just about the qualitative aspects of hierarchy. It was both the qualitative as well as the quantitative aspects of hierarchy.
They were mainly rejecting scalar change.
Yes. They were merely critiquing the principles as they were working because they were not giving the results. Okay, it was, see, remember, nobody is talking that you demolish the structure as it is. What is the new structure then? Everybody is trying to modify that structure because that structure suited a time and space, but it no more suits the time and space now. That is the idea. Okay, so you'll have to think it like that. Okay, so when we talk about the meaning of public administration, similar things can be asked in the examination. Okay, understood? So there are various views related to the meaning and scope of public administration. You have the narrow view, the broad view, the instrumentalist view, the bureaucratic view, the public policy view, etc., etc. So when you actually look at these views, every view is trying to look at the administration from a particular lens and emphasizing that lens. That means the flaw of that particular view will be visible in the counter view. Okay, so these things ideally, you should remember. So when we talk about the recent developments vis-a-vis the meaning, scope, significance aspect, we will have to look at how it is changing. The changing in the present era because of NPM, good governance, ICT, globalization, etc., etc. So please keep in mind that you do that. Okay, now let me actually jump to certain views which are there with regards to the scope of public administration. Because the question is hardly going to be, in state PCS they do ask some question on the meaning, but largely it's going to be a composite question on the meaning, scope, significance. If you look at the idea, the scope of the public administration has been dynamic. Based on what? Based on the present reality. Based on the present reality. Why? Because the public administration has to respond to these very present day realities. And hence, we see how it has evolved and how it is actually responding. Now, please understand. This is the administration and you have the societal reality, which is basically shaping the ecology of this administration. So the more complex the societal reality is, the more complex is going to be the administration or not. Right? So it has to keep in sync with the dynamic nature of the societal reality or the ecology. The moment that sync breaks, the administration comes in crisis. Okay? A good example would be, you would have seen that the tools of the fourth industrial revolution are emerging. 3D printing, blockchain, right? Your artificial intelligence, things like that. So the moment they are emerging, you see the administration world over. There was a conference at Bletchley Park, UK, about AI. You know what's the history of Bletchley Park? Bletchley Park, Alan Turing movie देखी किसी ने? Okay. So this was a place where actually Alan Turing Prize is the Nobel in computer science. Okay. So AI is obviously looking at IT and other things. So here the German Enigma machine codes were broken. So Bletchley Park is famous for that. Well, not digressing from the issue at hand. So the idea is that now the governments are actually racing to regulate AI, to come up with frameworks. हो रही है ना, बातचीत हो रही है. In India also there was a conference which was held in Bengaluru. So the point is, imagine a parallel reality where the state is actually not moving in this direction. Then what will it lead to? It will lead to anarchy. Because AI will grow. Either we can be a Kim Jong-un and we can build an iron curtain, right? Or if we are to live in an interconnected world, the governments will have to be responsive. Okay, so with regards to scope, it should carry certain features. The features are that it should be based on democratic values, power sharing and openness. Basically, public administration in modern era, the meaning, scope and significance of public administration in the modern era. It should be based on democratic principles, power sharing and openness. And the administration should also reflect these values. Otherwise, what will happen? There is going to be again the same thing, a desync. You are not writing, why? Okay. Understood? Any doubt? Any doubt whatsoever? Okay. Next, it should be innovative and prompt, because the situation is dynamic, complex. So no single paradigm can be relied. So you see, tomorrow if there is an emerging challenge, the government might not have the in-house expertise. So they will contact people. Also, the prevailing paradigm of governance, good governance, is about an interaction between state, market and civil societies. Right? So they call on experts. COVID-19 happened. So it was just that the government doctors were working and the private doctors were merrymaking. No. Everybody was working in concert. While a private institute, a private body like Serum Institute of India, etc. were working, so was CSIR. Okay. So they have to be innovative. The timely response should be there. Otherwise, it will again lead to the delegitimization. Okay. So not just the policy making, they have to be collaborative, but in policy implementation as well. So that the aspirations and the demand of the people and the citizens can be met. That means if you want to make a good policy implementation, that means the goal setting has to be done. Basically, all the features of post-decorp will have to be done. So, can we say that when we talk about this Gulick and Arvik, right, post-decorp Gulick and Arvik or Fayol? Post-decorp is given by Gulick and Arvik or Fayol? Gulick and Arvik. So that means that the classical thinking is still very much present, but in a newer avatar. Because again, you will have to do that very planning, organizing, collaborating, budgeting, goal setting, etc. But the point is, the way you do it changes. So that is the evolution of public administration in its expanding scope and its ability to actually be in sync with the society and respond to the societal demands or pulls and pressure. And hence you will need a systematization. Project management will be needed. Similarly, it cannot be reactionary. The public administration has to be preemptive. It has to be proactive. It has to anticipate the coming challenges. Okay? Risk taking is therefore a part of it. And this is what? This is a characteristic of the entrepreneurial government that we talk about as part of the NPM. Right or wrong? अरे भाई right or wrong? Right? है ना? बोल दिया करो मुझे वैसे ही पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन इतना कम आता है यार, आप लोग बताओगे नहीं तो कैसे चलेगा? ठीक है. So the idea is that it has to respond, okay, to the various challenges of the society. In this, let us take up the integral view. Integral view. That means that public administration is the total, it's the summation of all the activities undertaken in the fulfillment of public policies. That means it's the summation of all the activities undertaken regarding the fulfillment of a public policy. That means it is not just the managerial function or the technical function. Yes, they are there, but also other functions, manual, clerical activities. That means the entire organizational strength is involved from bottom to top. So all the activities of the government, whether they are performed by executive, legislature, judiciary, all the branches. Okay? Understood? Tell me a classical thinker who supports integral view. Fayol. LD White, Democ, they also. So basically what Fayol here is saying, that every employee in an undertaking, workman, shop manager, head of division, head of department, manager, and if it's a state enterprise, up to the level of minister or head of the state, have a share in the administration. So it is an integral view. So classical, integral view. Understood? This is how we have to draw the linkages. Similar views are echoed by LD White, Democ. Okay? So it is a heterogeneous that makes PubAd, a public administration, as a heterogeneous mix of functions and activities. So if I give you a question that public administration involves a heterogeneous mix of functions and activities, justify, comment, elaborate. अब समझ में आया कैसे होगा ये? How the linkages will have to be made. Got it? Yes, the question is mainly based on the integral view. But can you deduce that it is based on integral view? That is the challenge in the examination. If you do not know or if you haven't thought it like this, then it's going to be a problem in the examination. Because the question is going to be very, very abstract, that public administration is an heterogeneous mix of functions and activities. Comment. लोग कहते हैं पबैट में मार्क्स नहीं आते, लोग पबैट पढ़ते नहीं है या पढ़ाते नहीं है ठीक से. कृपा तो यहीं रुकी है. Now what, forget about it what I have said. What will you write in this? Because this is such an abstract question. Got it? But the moment you will support it with the integral view, immediately, first you have defined the periphery of your answer. The moment you can pin it up or hook it up with integral view. Okay, so the moment you do it, your scope gets defined, very, very defined of your answer. You can draw the example, you can quote LD White, Dimock, Fayol. So एक हिट पिक्चर के सारे इंग्रेडिएंट्स हैं, हीरो हीरोइन भी आ गए, कहानी भी आ गई. ठीक है, तो यही सीखना है हमें. दिस इज समथिंग that we have to learn in the class. Okay, any doubts whatsoever? Any doubts, friends? Any doubts? Anay, Saurabh? Any doubts? क्या दोबारा बोलिए. यस, क्वेश्चन डिकोड करना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. हाँ, वो you will have to pin up to a part of the syllabus. Until and unless you do not define your mission, you cannot execute anything. See, there are 3 or 4 layers of approaching the public administration. Though this is something that we tell after foundation ends, not much in the remit of advanced classes, but I'll give you a brief. First, you have to sort of see the concepts. Right, and then you have to make the interlinkages. For example, and a very good student of mine actually wrote an answer today, and another very good student actually commented upon it. Politico-administration dichotomy. Where do you think Wilson took it from? Or can you find a similar example somewhere else? When you look at Hanji, kya? Theory. Can you find a similar parallel in the theory and practice?
Like in recent context, there is criminalization of politics, or a lot of political interference in that institution. They don't let them work. So in that context,
No, criminalization or bureaucratization of politicization of bureaucracy, all those things are the practical manifestation of the ills of the dichotomy. But we are well aware that the dichotomy as a postulate has been replaced by the fusion. Right? So that is what you are telling me is the ill effects of the fusion.
yes.
Right? I am not talking about the ill effects. I am talking about the dichotomy where it exists between the political and the executive or the implementation arm. If you look at the second ARC, it recommends separating of the policy functions and the implementation functions. Why? Because often the policy framers and the implementators are the same set of bodies. So they suffer from a tunnel vision syndrome. That whatever they think is right. Okay. Also, if you look at the various BOSS which were there, Gang boss, this boss, functional foremanship. There also this relationship exists, dichotomy. You have a supervisor and you have a subordinate. Their functions are distinct. One reports to other. When you put this in a democratic context, what? The functions are divided, but one reports to other. Taylor, that is what I am saying. Functional foremanship किसका principle है? मेरा थोड़ी है, टेलर का ही है. ठीक है. Planning and execution. So you can find this in Taylorian philosophy as well. And the practical example I told you. So the Wilsonian CMT or SMT and the contemporary public administration, you will find the hues everywhere. So whenever you talk about relevance of Taylor, whenever you talk about relevance of the dichotomy principle, in spite of the fact that yes, fusion is the norm, but still in certain areas dichotomy should be there. Okay, so whenever you look at NPM, the execution comes in the private realm largely, right? But when the execution is coming in the private realm, is it a complete relegation of responsibility on part of the state? No. The state makes the rules. The state regulates. So here the state comes, then the state will come here. The administration which will be here will be just a overlap and the majority is being implemented by private. But the accountability is there. So that is how it is dichotomy in manifestation in NPA. Yes, to a certain extent, yes. Wherein the functions, the policy and the implementation functions differ. Yes. Okay, ji. Understood? Next, let us take up the managerial view. Anand, no sir, understood. Was it a no or understood? Yes, gang plank. You can very well put the gang plank. It works. Okay. Next, Hanchi. होंगे जो बेसिक सिलेबस में है वो है. इंटरलिंकिंग तो आप कहीं से भी निकाल सकते हो. अभी मैं और मैम बात कर रहे थे तो वी ब्रॉट इट एंड वी एक्सटेंडेड अप टू एनपीएम, राइट? इट्स हाउ वेल यू लिंक. सो द आइडिया हियर इज दैट you have a defined resource pool, okay, and you revisit that resource pool again and again, revise. So you'll yourself start seeing the similarities. Just like at the start we talked about CPA, NPA and DD, development dynamics. So we could draw the parallels, right? So interlinking will come. Similarly, if you will read the Personnel Administration Unit Paper 1 and the Civil Service Unit Paper 2, you will find the interlinkages. When you talk about conflict resolution, even the second ARC mentions FOLE. So there you can use the FOLE's integration strategy. Okay, so this is how you will have to go about it. Next is the managerial view. क्लास समझ में आ रही है? किसी को कोई दिक्कत तो नहीं? इज देयर एनी प्रॉब्लम? ठीक है, नींद तो नहीं आ रही किसी को? चलो ठीक. मैनेजरियल व्यू. बेसिकली इट मीन्स दैट द वर्क ऑफ ओनली दोज पर्सन्स who are engaged in the performance of the managerial functions in the organization relates to the administration. There is a team, ठेकेदार, a contractor. ठीक है, contractor तो पता है सबको, ठेकेदार. And then he will have further, बेलदार. बेलदार पता है? The junior partner of ठेकेदार. Right? One is responsible for creating beams, other is responsible for, let us say, bricklaying. And then you have the masons, mistri. So the managerial view says that the work of only those persons who are engaged in the performance of managerial functions. That means only this is administration. Integral view was saying that all of it is administration. You understand the difference? समझ में आया ये? पढ़ा हुआ है ये पहले? लेकिन अगर if you are looking at this, then you'll have to understand that these things can be used. Okay? So they are merely the foot soldiers, but it is these people, the administration, and we are talking about the managerial view which defines what administration is according to it. These people help in running of the organization and achievement of the objective. So their role is into planning, organizing all the activities. So who do you think are prominent scholars subscribing to the managerial view? Link. मैंने अभी बोला, into planning, organizing, coordinating, staffing. They are recruiting this staff. Gulik and Ervik हो गए ना अपने आप. Similarly, Herbert Simon. Okay, Simon is famous for what? Decision making. So he says that it is these people who end up making decisions. They are simply the followers of those decisions. Decision makers and decision takers. Okay, so Simon, Gulik, all they subscribe to the managerial view. So the idea that administration basically is the organization and the use of men and material in the pursuit of certain objectives. Okay? So that the activities that constitute the public administration are concerned with the techniques of management. Okay? So they are concerned about the techniques of management. So administration is here. Okay? So I hope you understand the difference between the managerial view and the integral view. Then one strand comes is the post-decor view. It is an offshoot of the managerial view, and it says any system that actually engages in these activities, post-decor activities, any system at any level will constitute an administration or would mean an administration. Okay? Understood? Now, a development happens. I hope everybody is understanding this. Yes, Ane, Gulik. that is the subject matter view. You see, for a long time, especially during the CMT, SMT era, it was thought about that the administration is largely about the post-decorb activity. Right? But gradually the thinking emerged to change. The thinking changed that earlier, which was thought to be the core, is not even the most important part. These activities were labeled as housekeeping activities. That means routine running, routine maintenance activities. The core of the administration is ultimately related to the admin providing services to the society, to the people, to the citizen. This is the subject matter view, wherein the core subjects, the core dimensions were taken. For example, performance of functions or provision of functions and services like law and order, education, health, agriculture, public works, social security, justice, defense. This is just a housekeeping activity. The core of the administration is about these sort of functions. And this housekeeping activity is just to maintain the regular functioning of the administration. It is not the administration. I hope you understood this, or should I repeat this? Understood? Okay. So, when the services are there, these programs or the various initiatives, the interventions that the state carries out is the ultimate realm of the public administration. The post-decorb are just the routine maintenance activities. Okay? For example, you see the police is there, right? There's a theft or there's a robbery, or the routine law and order, traffic management, etc. They all do this planning, coordination, etc. Right? This is the part, this is not the heart of the administration. Okay? So, this is the sort of the subject matter view that is being taken. Now, please understand, if I ask a question, that in defining the actual meaning and scope and significance of public administration, are post-decorb and subject matter view antagonistic to each other? बताइए. No, they are complementary. They are complementary. So this is something that is a takeaway for you all, that they are complementary. Because without post-decorb, you cannot realize the subject matter. And the subject matter is to be realized, you need a method. Okay, and hence both are complementary to each other. Okay, I will not get into the idea that similarity of public administration with economics, this and that. Okay, that is something that you all can do by your own. Now, I will shift the gears towards another very important idea. And that is about the evolution of the discipline. Evolution of the discipline of public administration. Okay. Principally, I'll not get into the specifics what Henry said and what Golembowski or others said. I mean, that is something which is already known. But the recent developments, which is actually impacting the discipline, those developments are digital transformation, use of AI, machine learning, blockchain. Now they are bringing about what? They are bringing about newer challenges, yes, but they also have the potential to enhance the service delivery and operational efficiency. Now understand, before this thing came about, if I see this as an evolution of public administration, expanding scope, and in tandem is the evolution that is happening. This is here, we are here, and this is the pre-AI tech blockchain era. Now the moment they have come in and have become the part of the environment, this will again expand or not? Yes or no? It will impact public administration as a discipline as well as a profession or activity. Okay, so this we have to keep in mind, that how and why is it happening. The moment this comes in, right now the paradigm is extension of NPM, good governance, etc. So it will have to respond to this. The moment it will have to respond to this, this is shaping this, and this is shaping this. Both are shaping each other. So the state will have to come up with laws, regulation, rules, etc. Similar is the case of cyber security. Okay. Also, if you look at the value backbone of the modern public administration, it is far more a value laden idea. When we look at SMT and CMT, etc., only the values that we were looking at were efficiency, effectiveness, all those things. But now we are looking at far more values when we look at the administration and its conduct. Empathy, equality, democracy, all those things are there. So it will have to account for the diversity, inclusion, equity. Because the modern public administration is non-exclusionist. Modern public administration is non-exclusionist. Comment. Modern public administration is non-exclusionist. Comment. See, I will give you 2 questions at the end of the session. If you want to write, you can write more questions, the questions that I am putting up like this. Okay, consider them as 10 marker or 15 marker, whatever, and then write. The important part is that you write. So the modern, because this is the recent development which is shaping the public administration. Also, we have seen in light of the recent happenings that the idea of public administration needs an administration that is agile, that is far more flexible, okay, far more responsive. Understood? Are bhai, understood? Okay. Now, with regards to, this was a prelude to the evolution because I wanted to demonstrate how modern times are shaping the administration. Okay. Now, we'll look at from the conceptual lens vis-a-vis paradigms by Henry and the studies of Golembowski. And then we'll do a juxtaposition of them. Okay. So if you look at Henry, he largely identifies the 5 paradigms. Okay, first is the politics administration dichotomy. Somewhere between 1900 to 1925-26. Okay. So here, who are the principal scholars? Wilson, Goodnow. That there should be a clear separation between politics, that is the policy making, right, and the administration, that is the policy implementation. Now let me draw an interesting thread out of this. क्या लगता है? है कि नहीं है? है कि नहीं है? Ever thought it like this? है ना? So the idea was that this is the administration should be separate from the political decision making, and the core tenets were the focus on efficiency and effectiveness. ठीक है? Understood? Next paradigm which comes is the idea of principles. Okay, principles. A task which you can do as a practice is that while we were talking about the meaning, scope, significance, I named certain thinkers. For example, Gladden, etc. Find out more thinkers and write 60 to 80 words against what they are saying. Okay? Just, for our ready revision notes. So the moment you'll find, it will be easy, because in the examination the questions are going to be like that. I gave the references of multiple PYQs. Okay. Next is the principles of administration. The idea was the universalization of principles. Okay, that we will come up with certain principles that will be universally applicable to the public administration, largely from 1926-27 to 1937. Obviously, the focus was on efficiency. Gulick and Urwick were one of the foremost proponents of the idea of the universalization. Okay, and at the core was the SMT in a manner wherein the focus was on things like hierarchy, division of work, span of control, and the search or the quest for the one best way. है कि नहीं? यही था ना? अरे बता दो, मेरे को याद नहीं, मैं एम बोल रहा हूं. यही था ना? So the point is this. Now see this and see this. While the principles of administration actually talks about one best way, the universalization of principles, hierarchy. Did Wilson rejected hierarchy? No. Did Goodnow rejected hierarchy? No. So while this emerges as a prominent idea, seeds can be seen here as well. Okay. Next, wherein the public administration was being seen as something which is the closed relationship between, not closed, close relationship with political science. So we can say PubAd as Pol Science. 1950s to 1970s. Okay. So the separation or the separate identity which got carved out here was again joining with its old pal, so as to say, or the mother discipline, political science, which was looking at administration in the broader political context. Now please understand, here what is happening? Things like NPA, CPA, DD are emerging. They are saying that the administration which was there is inward oriented. The administration before that, it is inward oriented. You should be outward oriented. Outward means sensitive to the ecology. Ecology would mean what? Political, cultural, social, economic. Ultimately everything flowing from the political ideas. So this is how you will make those linkages. Okay. So the administration before this was being looked at an isolated activity. The reinforcement of the ecological view starts here. Because here we are talking about, second point, universalization. Here we are talking about the complete dichotomy. So we are actually saying that do not look it with a political context. But here we are coming back. And this is where the era of fusion, you will see, will start with NPA and all those things. So it should be, remembered like a story. Then you will remember. Otherwise, if you will think that, oh, I know the definition, this and that, no use. So, the idea is that the political factors influence the administrative decisions and processes. One of the key figures, of course, since we have talked about NPA, it's Waldo. It is Waldo. Okay. So public administration, something which is related to the political science. Also you see the expansion in terms of the qualitative aspects of public administration. Earlier we were looking at material processes. Now we begin to talk about values in the third paradigm. So focus on values, democratic governance, etc., etc. Now, an overlapping idea which emerges with this. You see, it's like a transition. One is shaping other is fading away, the next one is coming. It's not a date that till today it was this, tomorrow it's going to be something else. Okay, it's always a transition. Public administration as management. Again, mid-50s till 70s. Okay. So, basically the private sector techniques are now seeping into the practices and processes of public administration. That means the emphasis is on management principles. Management principles. A bit, so till if I look at it here, isn't it similar to the universalization of second paradigm? But what makes the difference? Behavioral orientation. It is not only looking at the mechanistic paradigm like we saw in 2, it is looking at the organizational behavior along with the core tenets of efficiency, etc. So here you have scholars like Simon, Robert Dahl. Okay. Next comes the public administration as public administration. Okay, and here we'll see the coming up of NPM, etc. Basically, providing a uniqueness to the identity of public administration. as a distinct field of study, focusing on its specific challenges, methods and values. In a way, a metamorphosis or a summation of political science, management and other disciplines. Okay, understood? Now, let us take up views of Golembowski. I hope I have spelled the gentleman right. So you see, while Henry is leaning far more towards the ecology shaping the administration, Golembowski is actually looking at a far more dynamic plus empirical approach. He looks at certain things, for example, human behavior, organizational dynamics, and the empirical research to shape his ideas. So he looks at it from a behavioral approach, that how humans and the relationships actually work. Okay, so in this you see the work of scholars like Chester Bernard or Herbert Simon. They are focusing on these ideas like motivation, leadership, okay, application of sociological understanding. Okay, is everybody getting that? Saurabh, Anay, others, understood? Yes, the polyglot nature of public administration. Right. Okay. At the same time, when we say that the classical thinking or the quest for efficiency, effectiveness, systematization, empiricism is not dead, the empiricism or the empiricism based research methods which Golembowski talks about is the evidence based practices. Have you heard about the evidence based policy making? The rational policy model? Can make the linkages, right? Okay, so you use experiments, you do case studies, statistical analysis, right? At the same time, the organizational development, change, innovation, adaptability. Okay, so key differences between the two approaches. Key differences between the two approaches which is there. The focus approach, the focus and the approach by Nicholas Henry is a theoretical. Okay, so when we look at Henry and the Golembowski, Henry actually looks at the historical and the theoretical way. Okay? Whereas Golembowski adopts a behavioral and empirical way. A behavioral and empirical way. Okay. While Henry focuses on the ecology, the interplay between the political science management in shaping public administration, Golembowski is focusing on the human behavior and empirical research. Okay? So, the focus is pretty clear from here. Key principles. Henry would include the dichotomy, the principles of administration, political science, public administration as a unique discipline. Whereas the Golembowski's key paradigms would include behavioral approach, empirical research and organizational development. Henry follows a chronological way. Whereas Golembowski follows a evidence-based practical way. Key ideas of Henry include efficiency, effectiveness, integration of management and political science, and the distinct identity of public administration. Whereas Golembowski is looking at human behavior and continuous improvement. Henry's framework provide us the structural, conceptual, framework to study the evolution. Whereas Golembowski provides a far more practical framework. Distinct identity of public administration, he provides distinct identity. When he says that public administration has public administration at the end. So he is arriving at it through a structured framework, right? Whereas Golembowski is actually looking at a far more evidence-based, empirical, behavioral approach. What is the? Practical reference is that when you are studying, let us say, if you are looking at the study of public administration as a discipline, then the better way would be Henry. And if you are looking at it as an activity, the better way would be Golembowski. Example के लिए, if I need to understand, let us say, examine how the theoretical aspects or how the public administration is expanding. So the conceptual understanding will come from Henry, right? Because he is looking at certain chronology, that before it was this, now it is going to be this because of this, the ecology, right? Whereas in practical manifestation, the behavioral and the empirical part, because this has happened, this is happening. Okay, so this kind of analysis can be built. Yes, that's the practical manifestation. That's the practical manifestation. वो क्या? नहीं, वो Henry is actually, see, it is not about where Henry or where Golembowski. The idea is when you study the public administration, where it is today and from where it started, then the theoretical development gets far more clearer, logical through Henry's framework. But the practical, I said no, as a discipline and as a activity. There you can use Golembowski better. Okay. Next, let us take up Wilson in somewhat details, and there I will highlight the Wilson's view on various aspects. Okay. So you see, Wilson is a key figure. He was not just a scholar, but he later became a practitioner as well. In 1913, he becomes the President of the United States, and through the war, he remains the President. So Wilson actually was troubled by the idea of problems that was there in the American administration. When he talks about taking the administration away from the strife of politics. So, that is why you see the psyche behind the man, the psyche of the man and the thought behind the principles. That is why he talks about dichotomy. Okay, what other things he talks about? Scientific orientation, comparative studies. Okay. Because he says that the society is increasingly becoming complex, and that makes administration a major area, because administration deals with the affairs of the society, and hence it should have a separate identity. It should have aspects regarding how administrative functions can be performed better. That means the quest for efficiency, effectiveness. So he sees administration as a science. Okay? And for this, he starts looking at, because he says that the American administration is in trouble. He starts looking at outside, especially the European governments, French, German governments. And he tries and study them and the scientific orientation in them. That is why he brings about the comparative aspect. So a mistake that a lot of you might commit while writing a general answer on Wilson is that we end up describing the pillars, but we never build a bridge between those pillars. Okay, so it is important that his quest for science actually helped him frame his views on the comparative studies. Okay. So when he actually is looking at the European governments and the European administration, okay, he says that the administration is growing there. Why? Because at that time, generally the administrations in Europe were not full-fledged democracies. Okay, they were either monarchy, constitutional monarchy, and things like that. So they were not kept hostage to the public opinion to the extent that the purist democracy America was turning out to be. That is why he says it's a multitudinous monarch. And this shapes his opinion regarding the public and the public opinion and their relationship with the administration. Okay. So, also the idea that the government actually monopolizes everything in Europe. Okay? That is why they are successful. But they are successful in European context. They might not be successful in, for Wilson I am saying, American context. So they cannot be blanketly copied. They will have to be altered. He says that in America the popular sovereignty or the notion of popular sovereignty is so sacrosanct, but at times it leads to the slow progress in the science of administration. Okay. So, with regards to his general framing of ideas, there were multitude of influences which were framing or which led to the framing of the Wilsonian thought. Now, let us very briefly look at his thought on various aspects. For example, politics and administration. He talked about the dichotomy. Okay. So while talking about the dichotomy, he acknowledges that there is a very close relationship, an intimate and interdependent relationship that exists between the politics and the administration. There are no clear lines of demarcation that exists. Right? And he writes that nothing in the study of government can stand on its own. Right? It will have to have administration. And administration cannot be divorced easily from the branches of public law without being distorted and robbed of its true significance. However, he also says that both are separate activities. So remember, while talking about political administration dichotomy, he is talking about the separation. He is not talking about the severance of relationship. Okay, because he acknowledges that both are interdependent. As activities, they should be separated, but he does not completely dissolve the relationship between the two. Okay. Administration should lie outside the sphere of politics for the sake that politics is there, democracy, competing demands, etc., etc. Whereas administration to actually work and not getting embroiled in this whole exchange should be a separate entity. So his justification for keeping administration separate from politics actually comes from the fact that he wants the administration to realize its objective, to bring about efficiency, effectiveness, etc. and not get busy with the strife of politics. Okay. And he clearly says that the administrative questions are not political questions. Administrative questions are not political questions. So while politics is for politician, administration is for a technical official. Okay? So for bureaucracy to thrive, he says, it should be divorced from the politics. So this actually shows a dilemma in the minds of Wilson. That on one hand he is talking about the relationship, the intimate relationship that the politics and the administration have and enjoy. At the same time, he is talking about the separation. So that shows the dilemma that Wilson actually moves through. Because this is a theory building. In reality, we see that both cannot be separated. At the same time, too much fusion will again lead to problems like politicization of bureaucracy, etc. So there should be a measured, calibrated distance. So that is the way which is the right way. Okay, so that is there. Right. It's not possible. But there we are talking about, when you talk about Montesquieu, we are talking about the political theory of how the state and the society are related. But here we are talking about the state as in the policy echelon and the administration, the implementation echelon. So the context differs, the principle remains the same. Right, very good. Okay, are we following this, friends? Saurabh, Anay, have we got this? Multitudinous monarchy, yes. Have we got this? किसका? हाँ हाँ. No, I mean, how can you relate the terrorist attack with this?
Not about the terrorist attack. Administration system in USA. So there is a very good officer retired. There is no politically, we don't have any action. Action is problematic. Department of the connecting department.
That is, we cannot really put it in the political administration dichotomy. That will have to be dealt with the ideas of more coordination, information sharing, communication. Right? So you'll use Bernard there. Okay. Okay. So next. Now there is a very interesting take on public opinion. Public opinion and administration. So Wilson says that the public opinion should be like an authoritative critic. Okay, it should act like an authoritative critic, that it should scream if something goes wrong, that hey, you are doing this wrong. Okay, things like that. But there is also need to guard that the public opinion should not become meddlesome, that it starts interfering in day-to-day administration. Okay, it should not become meddlesome. Oh, okay. Also, public criticism is something that is vital and an inseparable part of any democratic system. So there should be avenues for rational public criticism that must be there, but at the same time not to the extent that they unduly interfere with the administrative processes. Next, Wilson talks about civil service. Reform, need, etc. So see, Wilson, while talking about the separation of powers, the separation between administration and politics, the scientific orientation, the precisely scientific orientation he's talking about the administration. It is for a technically sound bureaucracy. So he is all for a technically sound civil service. That means a merit orientation. At the same time, because he advocated the concept of dichotomy, he wanted to prevent the bureaucracy from acquiring the elitist orientation and creation of a new layer of a bureaucratic elite, okay, who are not subject to the democratic control. Okay, so a clear distinction can be seen in a country like India, where civil service largely operates under the political executive, while in certain countries you see the political, especially that is the hallmark of oligarchies, where one people or one family is ruling, that the civil service becomes the bureaucratic elite. Okay, so precisely while he was looking at the administration essay, when he wrote that essay, and when things were coming up in America, that was the start of the reform, because separating the bureaucracy from the strife of politics. So at that time, whatever reform was there, he said it's only a prelude. It's a moral preparation for what is to follow. And therefore, because of the dichotomy, because of the context that shaped his dichotomical views, he brings in certain value systems with regards to civil service. That is, impartial administration, a proficient, efficient administration. They should adhere to the superiors. Okay? Also, in terms of the methods of appointment, the discharge of functions, etc. So, he also is providing the ethics into the administration. And similar is the remark by Nicholas Henry or Wilson, that he actually facilitated the expansion of the ethical sense of public duty beyond the on paper conceptual confines of civil services. Okay, understood? So that was the vision of the reforms when he talked about the civil services. Understood this aspect? Okay. Okay. So how do we actually look at the Wilsonian ideas? That is again somewhat important. Important because when we look at the Wilsonian ideas, were they all good or were they not criticized? I mean, you find a book where the criticism of Wilson is given. मिला? बहुत मुश्किल से मिलेगा, मिलता नहीं है आसानी से. Now this you can use in balancing the arguments in the examination. Okay. You see, when you talk about the criticism, often what you get is that the politics administration dichotomy was something which was unrealistic. Fusion is the norm. So this is one aspect, that the political administration dichotomy was impractical. This is the first and one of the most popular criticism. Because the part of an administration or the part of the job of an administration is to make policy decisions. Right? And the elected executive ought to influence that policy decision. Otherwise, what's the point of whole election? Right? Hence, this separation of politics and administration is not a very good idea. Because practicality or the needs of the practicality dictates that they ought not to be separated, because the permanent executive, the career bureaucrats are not directly accountable. The elected official is the elected person or the elected representative is directly accountable. But if you are not going to give that person a say in the implementation, then what's the point? Okay. Also, the inherent political view of public administration, that public administration does not operate in isolation, it operates in a political context or political environment. That includes, by politics it means competitiveness, bargaining of interest, right? So there will be bargaining of interest, there would be allocation of resources to varying interest. The stakeholdership is a very critical idea of political process. Right? So that is there. Next, another criticism is that the administrative process as conceived by Wilson is oversimplified. It's oversimplified. Why? Because it neglects the human factors. It is mechanistic in nature. While Wilson focuses on efficiency, effectiveness, scientific management, right? But it ignores the organizational dynamics, organizational culture, informal networks. And this is more true in a heterogeneous society like India. You will have people aligned on so many lines, caste lines, class lines. So you will see that a bureaucrat belonging to a particular caste might act in bias against a particular caste member or in favor of a particular caste member, whatsoever may be the case. Also, the mechanistic nature as given by Wilson does not account for the dynamic and the adaptable nature of the public administration, which requires flexibility and innovation. Next, lack of emphasis on public accountability. You see, it is coming again from the dichotomy itself. When politics and administration is getting separated, the politics is accountable to the people through the democratic means, right? Elections, other means. When you have a separation here, how will you ensure this accountability? So, lack of emphasis on accountability and transparency in the administration. So that how to make these administrators, these bureaucrats accountable to the public and elected representatives. If you are going to make them so independent, who will they report to? Right? So that is there. Also, Wilsonian ideas, if you look at, they were formulated and they get crystallized in the late 1800s and early 1900s, and they were, not very suited, or they cannot be mimicked exactly in the present day times. I know there is a lot of literature which is available, also PYQs on the relevance of Wilson in the present era. So I'm not touching upon that. I'm touching upon the critical appraisal. You see, the administrative challenges which existed then were completely different from what exists now. Okay. Also, the public administration as a discipline as well as an activity has evolved. New paradigms have come up, NPM, good governance, etc., etc. Right? So the exact idea of the idea of only scientific orientation, no behavioral orientation, the idea of dichotomy, no fusion, right? Blanket comparative analysis again are problematic. Also, you see, Wilson, in the quest for a disciplined administration, for a rational administration, sacrificed the value aspect. So he takes to the administration as a value-free entity. So he has clearly not paid attention to the ethical and normative dimensions of public administration. So this is largely the criticism of Wilson. Understood? Has everybody understood, friends who are watching us online? Has everybody understood? So bureaucratic elite वाला point समझ नहीं आया. You see, Wilson was against the idea while talking about the civil service because he understands that the civil service will have power because they are in the position and in the command of resources. So a bureaucracy which is not democratically accountable through some measure would lead to a creation of a bureaucratic elite. And Wilson said that this is something which is not desirable. So he was against the idea of the creation of bureaucratic elite. Understood? Understood, Saurabh? Okay. Now I want to draw your attention towards another very important idea or topic that I wanted to take up. That is the positivism. Okay. You see, often in the questions you hear about the positivist underpinning, the positivist orientation. Basically, it is an idea that asserts that only scientific knowledge derived from observable and measurable phenomena is something which is to be believed or something that has credibility. So if you look at CMT, SMT, they were merely looking at the mechanical aspects from the positivist point of view. Okay. So positivism as an ideology basically rejects the metaphysical or theological explanation. So it is focused on empirical observation, scientific approach, value-free inquiry, theory, hypothesis, and testing philosophy. So when you look at the positivist approach, or when you look at public administration from a positive approach, that involves the applying of scientific principles and methods to the study and practice of administration. Why? To improve efficiency, effectiveness, accountability, etc. So if you look at the positivist approach, the idea actually starts in a big and formal way from Wilson himself, when he talks about the separation of politics from administration to create a professional and efficient administration. Similarly, Taylor, Gulick, Urwick, Taylor's principles of scientific management, Gulick, Urwick's post-decorb, right? All of they in the classical era represent a positivist approach. If I look at today, present reality, the evidence-based policy making, the empiricism, outcome orientation, the empirical research methods like statistical analysis, case studies, program evaluation and monitoring, all of them are what? They are the manifestation of the positivist orientation in public administration. You see, a road is being built. So I am looking at the criteria, how many kilometers of road has been built. I am not looking at how many people are satisfied. So that's a metaphysical idea. Okay. So is the positivist orientation in public administration wholly correct? No. No. Okay. Similarly, if you look at the positivist orientation, you find that in the Simon's bounded rationality model as well. Okay. So he said that the decisions should be made based on the available information, time, capacity. Again, a positivist orientation. That is why you say, whenever we look at Simon's decision-making theory, it gives you a good framework, but its positivist orientation is problematic. Okay. Now, obviously, this orientation is not without its flaws. The flaws are that it overemphasizes upon the data, information, etc., and disregard for human values, ethics, and the behavioral dynamics. The decisions cannot be entirely value free. Okay, and in this response, you see, the post-positivism ideology has developed. We'll be talking about that as well. So, while the positivist orientation focuses on the quantitative aspects, the post-positivist focuses both on the quantitative as well as the qualitative aspects. So all you see that big data, performance based budgeting, those are positivist products. समझ में आ गया? So post-positive thinkers would include people like Karl Popper, Thomas Kuhn, so in policy making and in public administration, we actually use the post-positivist ideology in policy analysis that leads to a far more holistic appraisal of policy and administrative quality, efficiency, effectiveness. Also, in the participatory mode of public administration, the post-positivist view helps because it keeps the stakeholders and other actors as a part of the administrative process. Okay, so that is there. Now draw a brief, table that I want you to have. See, a direct question on positivism is unlikely, but the point is you can use this approach in connection to various things the way we were talking. Okay, so this is the positivist, post-positivist. So if we look at the philosophy or the philosophical basis, positivism is also called as logical positivism. Okay, the basis is empiricism, logic. Whereas the post-positive perspective is about critical realism. Critical realism. Right? If I look at a positive perspective, I can say scholars, Wilson, Taylor, here Karl Popper, Thomas Kuhn, Kuhn, not AN. The focus is on quantitative, where here it is qualitative plus quantitative. Value free. Value laden. So participatory research, meta-policy analysis, you will find the application of the post-positivist outlook. Okay? What is positive about the positivist approach? It has precision, efficiency. It is predictable. Whereas the post-positivist, the advantages are that it is inclusive, contextual. Okay? Kya? Direct question will not come on positivism. But the idea is that how, for example, to criticize the positivist theories, you can use the post-positivism. Understood? In that case, you are going to use this argument. So it will provide somewhat heft rather than just a general sort of a argument. Okay, so that is the idea. One more thing that I want to bring about is the idea of interpretive interpretivism. You can use these ideas to basically make arguments in the answer with your standard, Bernard, Simon, Taylor, Wilson. So that will elevate your answer. That's it. Nothing else. That is interpretivism. Interpretivism is also called as anti-positivism. It basically believes that objectivity is impossible. It says that the positivist theory actually assume things to be 100% objective and the world as it exists based on whatever appraisal, the data, the information, etc. they collect. Okay. So, while the positivism is based on the study of facts and gathering physical evidence, it is related to the scientific view of the world as it is there. Okay. So, they say that, interpretivism says that this kind of objectivity, or which is perceived as objectivity based on observation, is impossible. Okay? Because without gaining the subjective knowledge, you cannot know about the details. You cannot know about the depth of the issues. And hence, he talks about the interpretivism, talks about the qualitative analysis. Okay? For example, not just how many males or how many females are there, and you do a survey and you find out the gender gap. Right? This would imply a positivist orientation. But how many of them actually want to have a boy or a girl as their child? That would go into a level deeper, reveal the status of the society. Okay, so detailed interviews should be conducted. Rather than just the quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis should be made with less number of people, with questions like yes or no. So that more, information it emerges. So while the positivist orientation would be scientific, empirical, quantitative, the traditional approach would be an experiment or a survey. The interpretive orientation would be far more ethnographic, qualitative, participation based, observation, depth interview. Okay? So that is there. So that is the difference between the positivism, anti-positivism or interpretivism, and the post-positive approach. Okay? So that practically ends our session for today. There's a spillover, the impact of liberalization or globalization, etc. We'll take that up in the next session, right? And that is how we intend to move forward, right? If there is anything, if you have any doubts, you can ask. But the session is not over yet. I'm going to give you certain questions which you have to submit it to me, right? I gave the format in the starting, ma'am. You might have missed that format. So just watch the session when you go back for first 10-15 minutes. Okay. So the questions are going to be simple. You want me to write them on the board or you want me to dictate them? Dictation would do? Okay. The work which the government does, the work which the government does to give effect to a law is called public administration. Is called public administration. This statement has been made by Walker. Okay. So after the statement, hash Walker, comment, explain. Full stop, explain. Okay. So try and attempt this as a 10 marker, right? And try and write a PYQ. The PYQ would be within quotes, if there is ever to be a science of public administration, if there is ever to be a science of public administration, it must derive from an understanding of man's behavior. From an understanding of man's behavior. Those of you who are watching online and haven't really seen the initial part of the session, please do it, because in that I share how you can send those answers to me. Okay? Man's behavior, explain. These two questions. Take this also as a 10 marker. Okay? Understood? Alright. So before we close the session for the day, any queries or doubts? No, Saurabh, it is not actually 100% rejection. It is rather a more deep, it is like we study anti-development thesis. It does not mean that no development. It is a new way to approach the positivism. Got it? Understood, Saurabh? Alright, so let's end today's session. Okay? If you have any doubts, you can ask me. Alright, okay. Take care. Bye-bye.